In September, our team has delivered a set of really cool Aidbox new features and enhancements. And today, engineers who delivered them will have an opportunity to do a quick demo and answer the questions. So let's do one by one. So the first and the major update of the recent release was FHIR Validator that uses a FHIR schema. Basically, it really enhances the quality of life of engineers and people who have to deal with validation of FHIR resources. The cool thing about that is you can author your FHIR profiles using FHIR schema that we will talk about today, FISH profiles, or use FHIR profiles that are represented by structure definitions. So, Evgeny,
let's start with our new validator engine. So we have this beautiful UI for our engine where you can throw in some resources or alter some structure definitions or schemas just to check them out. And let's start with our one of the main features is automatic package inferring. So you don't need to hassle with all of this configuration, package searching and stuff. If you want to validate something, just drop in your resource into this input area and start validation. For example, I want to validate patient resource with US core profile attached. So let's start, for example, patient. Here we just putting this specific link for this profile and just press validate. And as you can see, we got results. So there are obviously lots of errors because we just send the empty patient resource without gender identifier, and US core known for require such fields. So basically we already loaded this profile and we using it in our validator. So if you want to specify a specific version of US core, just put this pipe character and provide a concrete version. Oops, 5, because there is no US core 5.111. Yeah, and as you can see, we have a new error because in US core 5.1.1, they put this constraint about name directly on name, and there's also error about patient name. So if you want to validate your resource, just drop your resource content directly into this input area, no configuration. So everything inferring automatically. That's it. And you can upload your structure definitions directly into validator. So let's, for example, take this US core profile structure definition. It's still US core patient. It's without snapshot, so it's just differential. And as you can see here, we have custom URL for this structure definition. So it's just like custom path something. So we also can upload it. Let's copy this URL. So we have this profile in our store right now, and let's switch to validate. And because it's the same profile as US core 6.1, probably we will get same errors like about identifier and gender. Like let's add these fields because it feels a bit strange. Same errors. This gender, yeah. And as you can see, we got terminology binding error. Let's fix this one to correct version. Yep. So you can like type in name and etc. Another feature is our new format for validation. So it's FHIR schema, and actually all of the structure definitions and FISH documents actually being compiled to FHIR schema under the hood. So you can also play with FHIR schema samples. There are different profiles written completely in FHIR schemas. For example, there's a patient profile that had specific constraint to the name field. So it actually requires a nickname. So let's upload it and let's try this one. And let's validate. Oops. There's a comma, trailing comma at the end. So yeah, as you can see, it's just dynamically loaded. And we have this profile we after it and load it to the state. And yeah, you can just try this new format we are working in. And last feature is just like quality of life stuff. There's also a FHIR path tester, so you can also play with FHIR path expression if you want. So for example, let's test this, and here's the regular FHIR path. So while you altering your profiles, you also can try out some different FHIR path expressions. And that's it.
I just wanted to mention that this validator right now exists outside of Aidbox, and we are in process of migrating it, and it will be available in a couple of upcoming releases. But for now, if you want to do the validation outside of Aidbox, for example, reach out to us. We will be happy to provide it to provide it as a standalone entity. It might be used in this way. And Nikolai, could you please give a small intro on FHIR Schema and our plans on replacing them schema with FHIR Schema?
Yeah, so the FHIR Schema, it's a very, very long discussion in the FHIR community. The general idea of the FHIR Schema, let's take like JSON schema ideas and apply it to the FHIR. So the problem we are trying to solve that in a FHIR structure definition is really heavy, and work with the structure definition. And we only have like 1.5 implementation of FHIR validation, which is compliant now in the world. It's just Java reference implementation, which is supported by Graham, and probably .NET AVOT configuration. And that said that we do not see other implementations. So the FHIR Schema is trying to fix this, making the implementation of FHIR validation very straightforward. So it's going to be the community standard. So there is a lot of FHIR guys who are interested in it. It's suited very well for code generation because it's, I don't know. So Evgeny didn't show you some examples. Evgeny, maybe you can show the example of FHIR Schema. It's much easier to talk about this, like from the spec. So the general idea that the most implementers are nesting FHIR path expression from structure definition, and here the nesting already done. So we simplify the types, we handle arrays in a straightforward way. So, and you may think that, and we discussed with a bunch of implementers of FHIR validation, that internally that's exactly what they are doing. So the idea is, so can we standardize this intermediate, more convenient for implementation format? And it is going to be like initially community standard, later maybe it will become the part of the FHIR standard. What's nice about this representation, it's much closer to FHIR internal representation. So that's why we can transpile FHIR directly to FHIR Schema. And another challenge was to implement like FHIR validation without snapshotting, because for now the FHIR validation is split into two parts, like the logic of FHIR validation. It creates a snapshot, and a lot of logic handle it in creating snapshot and then running the validator. But the creation of the snapshot brings a lot of problems. So the first of all, you should distribute your resources with the snapshots. If you updated any base profiles which you inherited in your profile, then you have to update all the children. So, and this is, I think, it is a bad pattern. And yeah, so it's put a bunch of problems on a validation. As well, you revalidate the same rules. And the general idea of FHIR Schema was to describe the algorithm which can do validation without snapshot. So we can call it like snapshot-less validation, which open for us the performance and the much easier and teeny distribution stuff. So yeah, so the general idea, we just making it more developers friendly with stripping out all the documentation parts. We put everything into one JSON file. Let's say the whole IG may be in a JSON file, and it is very straightforward for developers. And yeah, we are planning to make this validation by FHIR Schema the default engine in Aidbox in the near future. Yeah, I think we passed most of the tests and even passed it even more than the reference implementation passed.
Yeah,
For the
especially-
FHIR validation, yeah, we discovered a bunch of problems in a reference implementation. Evgeny, can you comment on this?
Yeah, especially about slicing part, because it's, to be honest, big pain point in a FHIR specification, because slices and slices outering is just one huge mystery, and we actually sort of simplified it a lot in FHIR Schema, because in FHIR Schema you can describe your slice just like a filter plus schema if you want, so nothing like fancy or wizardry about it. Yeah, and we just found lots of different mistakes and bugs in core profiles just by testing FHIR Schema, because we're trying to test our new validator against every profile possible that right now is uploaded onto packages2 FHIRbuild.org repository. So yep, that's it.
Yep. Yeah, and another interesting stuff which we did and which we're gonna community will support. So we grabbed all like 700 popular IGs, transpiled to the FHIR Schema. I think the final size, I don't know, Evgeny, can you give us the numbers?
Like all of this 700 edges is something around 100 megabytes. For example, if you want to run Aidbox with every profile possible, it just takes like something around 100 megs. With terminology indexes, it's something around 150 megabytes.
I'm sorry for the interruption, but we are out of time.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, you're welcome to ask any questions. Please go and read spec, and you're welcome to provide us feedback.
One more of update that we would like to highlight: FHIR R4B and R5 topic-based subscriptions. Basically, we've introduced GCP PubSub integration, enabled monitoring in Aidbox UI and Aidbox Metrics server, and published an Aidbox new configuration project. One of the updates on the recently new introduced SQL and FHIR Engine is an ability to create materialized views, thus making the experience of working with it much more efficient. And we have several enhancements in Aidbox UI that were also recently introduced. So Igor, please go ahead with the demo.
In the past release, we introduced a way to add view definitions and to define flat views using them. In this release, we worked on quality of life, and in particular on creating flat views using REST API. So now you can create views as simple as you could create view definitions. Most importantly, view definitions are now spec compliant, so they are defined pretty much like they are defined in SQL and FHIR specifications. So now you can create your view definitions like this, like any other resource in Aidbox. When you create your view definition, it will also create the corresponding flat view automatically, without needing to utilize RPC calls anymore. You can also change your view definition using put method, and when you do it, it also automatically modifies your corresponding flat view. So here we changed our ID column to be a name column, and check this. Here we have our name column and no ID to be seen. Another feature is actually right now it's Aidbox specific. We added an extension that allows you to change the preferred type of relation for your flat view. So if you want, for example, table or a materialized view instead of just plain SQL view, You can do that by adding an extension to your view definition and setting materialization to your corresponding type of relation. And also you can change the schema. In the past release, you could only use SOF schema. Right now you can put your flat views wherever you want. So for example, here we have schema set to public and materialization type set to table. And as you can see, we have our patient view in public schema, and it is also a table. The most importantly, it works seamlessly as if you modified your view. So you change the materialization type and it removes the previous relation and creates a new one. So you don't have a patient view anymore. It was removed, and it saves you headache of trying to handle all the various entities in your database. And also, when you delete your view definition, it also deletes your corresponding flat view. So you can see I deleted the patient view and it's not here anymore. That's pretty much it for this feature. Thank you.
In the September release, we have introduced an open source telehealth app on top of Aidbox that gives you a reference implementation and a boilerplate code that you might reuse in your applications. And today we have Gennady who can guide us and show how it looks like.
So I want to guide you through Telemet project that we released to open source. I start from provider point of view. So this application has 3 role type: patient, provider, and admin. I want to make a quick overview of feature that this application includes. This is the registration section. Forgot password, so basically default flow for each web application with session management. Now we are seeing from the point of view of provider. So there is our profile section. So here we have model of scheduling, like we can decide when we available for appointment. So basically it's our slots. As a provider, we can create new one through this form. And this is the section of our current scheduled appointments. For example, this one, we see here that's a person that got a headache. And we can see here that we can have a conversation through the video call with this person. As well, here we can chat. But at the same time, from the patient point of view, there is the patient. Patient is able to schedule a new appointment. As we remember from provider point of view, we have slots from 11 to 3 p.m. And here we can decide the time, like we can select convenient time for us and describe our problem here. Here we have a new appointment. As well, patient is able to see the chat between provider and patient before and during appointment. So, and we can, for example, start video call. Yeah, we can have a call, we can chat each other. When appointment is done, completed, we can finish the appointment. And now it's in history section. We can see the chat and the list of all appointments that already happened. So I think it's a good overview of main feature of this application, because like it's most important feature for Telemet application that you want to see in your application. And now I'll show you where you can see it when you can use it. Now it's in open source. It places it in repo under Aidbox. It's called Telemet. Here, quick description how to run it and how to use it. Most important sections is first of all is Zen Aidbox project. Here we have a lot of configuration. For example, this is API constructor, is especially gateway logic, configuration for Aidbox, some seeds, extension if you need custom entities in Aidbox tasks. So here is like a complex configuration for Aidbox, and I think it's quite useful for people who learn how to like interact with Aidbox, how to configure it and use a feature like turn it on or off, manage them. So I think it's quite useful. This application built on top of TypeScript. It's Node.js for backend, React for frontend. Most important thing here is SDK. We are like in parallel, we developing SDK for JavaScript, especially TypeScript. You can see it under Aidbox organization. It's called Aidbox SDK.js. It's our way to communicate with Aidbox for developers. It's quite easy and straightforward. So we are using SDK here, and I can quickly show you a couple examples of usage, I think. So this is the way how we connect to Aidbox, like where it is, and client. For example, here, how we make request to Aidbox from frontend, how we manage user sessions, like a lot of complex interaction between Aidbox, backend, frontend. So if you want to learn, it's like the best place to start, like to analyze what's happening here. I think that's it. The same for backend. You have here the same SDK that we are using, for example, for scheduling part. We have quite complex SQL, SQL if you want to create complex queries, and FHIR API is not enough for you. So a lot of different cases, problems that you can solve like during your integration with Aidbox. Something like that.
Thanks
Do
a
you
lot.
have any questions?
I'm sorry, but we don't have any space for questions for
okay.
now, because we got a very tough agenda.
And invite
So
people to try this sample application. If any issues, please create an issue in a GitHub repo or contact us.
the second update on the Aidbox side is in the space of operations. We have introduced an OpenTelemetry Exporter that allows you to plug Aidbox into OpenTelemetry powered ecosystem for logs, metrics, and traces. And Dmitry is here to give a small demo of this enhancement.
I want to speak a bit about observability in Common. It's quite a difficult, painful topic in Common, but it's become more difficult when one starts having so-called microservice architecture, when you have a lot of instances, and it could be quite painful to debug something. So there is so-called OpenTelemetry. It is a specification. It is also open source, and it is supported by huge vendors like Google, Microsoft, and all those. You can think of OpenTelemetry as of specification like a FHIR for telemetry data. When FHIR came, it provided it unified the API of exchanging health data. So does the telemetry. It unifies the API of telemetry data like traces, logs, metrics, and on the other hand, it provides us so-called OpenTelemetry collector. So what's the value of OpenTelemetry? It provides easy to customize telemetry configuration and debugging tools. So if to speak about Aidbox and OpenTelemetry, Aidbox supports all the signals OpenTelemetry requires, such as logs, metrics, and traces. Aidbox exports those data directly to the OpenTelemetry collector, and then you or we, anyone can set up it as it intended as the way when you can you define in your OpenTelemetry configuration what exactly and how exactly your telemetry signals are preprocessed, batched, and where this data is transferred to. For example, now I'm having onto my laptop this configuration when Aidbox generates those logs, metrics, and traces, and OpenTelemetry proxies the data logs to the Elastic plus Kibana, my metrics to the Prometheus and Grafana, and traces appears in the Zipkin. Let's start from the Grafana and the Prometheus and see some metrics. Here you can see my simple Grafana dashboard. Here you can see two graphics, the JVM heap size, memory usage, and DB request count. Those metrics are exposed from Aidbox and appears in the OpenTelemetry collector. Then it exposes to the Prometheus. And Grafana reads data directly from the Prometheus. It's not that interesting, as let's perform some requests to Aidbox. Here I'm streaming you the screen where I'm making so-called post request with a bundle. Let's see what would happen when I press that green button send. So we got 200, and let's go to the Zipkin. I'm refreshing. A few seconds ago, let's see what would Zipkin shows us. So we can see there is the initial request. It falls apart onto different nested spans, and we can get some useful for debug information, like when the operation starts, when it's ended, what it consists of. So we can see the original handler request consists of authentication, then it resolves the route, then performs some authorization actions, then sub requests starting. Then sub request starts, and the same thing appears above those sub requests. You can see here so-called trace ID Aidbox produces during the processing an incoming HTTP request, and now we would see what Elastic would show us when we get that trace ID, and we see there is 14 log messages here in the Kibana. It has the same trace ID, and it become, besides those post requests, we see any additional information here, like some database requests and all that stuff. Okay, then OpenTelemetry also requires us to support so-called trace header. It stands for, now Aidbox supports it, and that supporting stands for Aidbox respects that trace header. Now I'm going to perform an additional HTTP requests. I'm going to update that patient and provide that trace parent header. In that trace parent header, I have updated my trace ID, and let's see how these would reflect in Zipkin. See here this trace ID Aidbox. When Aidbox receives requests with trace header, it uses that trace ID during the processing of that HTTP requests. We see that original request is here, and also we would see some details according to this trace ID in our Elastic. Yeah, as well. Okay, that's all what I wanted to tell you about our Aidbox
We have a
OpenTelemetry.
question.
Yeah,
Alwasi, please go ahead. You have raised your hand.
Yeah, hi, my name is Olu, right? I just wanted to know, how do we integrate this telemetry data into like log analytics? Because currently we are running on Azure, right? We want all our log to be centralized in a central location. So is there a way to integrate all this log into log analytics or have insight on Azure?
No, it's very easy. Yeah, it would require you two things to do. The first one, you should define those telemetry exporters within Aidbox configuration projects. Please see here, I have defined those three ones for logs, metrics, and exporters. Here, it's quite simple. You just show where it should post logs, metrics, and traces. It's the first configuration. The second configuration, I'm streaming now so-called OpenTelemetry collector configuration. Here you can see receivers and a bunch of exporters. I have only one exporters for each telemetry data type. For metrics, I expose data to the Prometheus, logs to Elastic, and traces to Zipkin. But frankly speaking, there are much more exporters written for OpenTelemetry collector. Most of all major vendors write their own exporters and even receivers. Datadog, New and all that stuff. You can poke that OpenTelemetry website and their GitHub repos. You can see those exports there, and I believe you would definitely find the thing you are used to use.
I think the simple answer is that you should look for exporter for your specific platform where you're hosting your logs.
Next update from our release is a bunch of enhancements on audit log UI.
Yeah.
Dima, could you please?
Yes, thank you. I am continuing my streaming. Last release, we updated our so-called audit viewer. We improved our graphical user interface. We added filters, rebuilt that grid, and do some UI improvements. Let's start from the beginning. So now there is a data range picker. You can select what dates your audit events should be in. Also, now you can filter the data by user. Let's say as a user admin, you can see some operations here. The same is done if to speak about patient context. Test PT1. Yeah, you can filter the lines out with the patient context. We added columns here and some expand and improve the expansion. So here you can see a short description of the operation, like successful update of a patient. You can see who does that. I mean the client. In terms of client, when we say client, we are telling about external program, external to Aidbox program. You can see the affected patient. Here, test PT1 patient ID, when it happens, and other useful information related to that event. Also, you can switch to the row representation of that audit event, and those events I'm streaming you now, they are generated by Aidbox itself, but it doesn't mean you cannot add your own audit events into Aidbox. Aidbox fully supports audit event RESTful API. Besides viewing only Aidbox audit events, you can put your audit events into Aidbox and search through those events here in this neat UI.
And we have some space for one more demo. that is a demo of forms. In the recent release, we have introduced autocompletes for literals and keywords. We have introduced one form template, and the coolest, in my personal opinion, thing about it is that we have introduced a new UI builder, very, very immature, but we will keep working on it. Vitaly, are you here?
Yeah, thank you for introduction. We'll start from small features. This is from our converters that now support FHIR bundle. As you may know, we have some model Aidbox Forms, which gives you ability to take feedback from some people, maybe patients or someone else, and you are able to use the whole set of libraries that are available, let's say LINQ, and convert them to our forms. For example, for now, I'm looking at depression form in the LINQ. It has its definition as questionnaire resource, but it's by default, it's often stored as resource bundle in which questionnaire internally injected. We just take this raw JSON, we copy it, and we will try to create new form this questionnaire. Going here to our importer just to check its bundle, and we are creating our new depression form. It's created. After that, we can change it or use from the start. Maybe in some way we don't support in conversion additional features from the FHIR SDC implementation guide, but all basic stuff is supported and converted here. And right now, like you see, we convert this form to our internal DSL. It has several layers. Each layer describes some aspect of this form, how this form is defined, what is the questions, like here, questions and set of answers, how they appeared in the layout, in what order, also how to launch a form, how to populate the data. Here's generated default prepopulation. You can go and change here. Also finalize these extractions to observation by default, but you can write your own and extract to maybe allergy tolerance, procedures, or maybe something else. And also we can describe constraints. Okay, and for now, I'm going to show you the second feature that we add in our editor, this autocomplete for literals and keywords. Keyword is any text that started from column. It's named keyword, and we use this keyword like names of properties. Here, just go maybe in any place, like here, and type control space, and we have all keywords that's accessible in this context. We can right now type a help message. Also, you can see on the right side of autocomplete, there appears some documentation. And second part, we add autocomplete for just literals. For now, it's just empty string. You don't need to type it. Maybe after we get here some, okay, little button with help. Okay, this is two small features. Also, we have our proprietary new template in the form. We go back. Yep, you can see right now it's quite big. It's also support all default questions, but maybe it's in some way we get it from LINQ, and maybe it didn't consist any rules, but you can add your own, maybe what to show to make form more dynamic. the last feature, it's more promising one, is our new effort in a direction for creating forms from non-technical users. This is our UI builder. It's currently in beta, like just preview, like it will looks. Here we have two panels. On the right you have a form, on the left you have some logical structure where you can change items and any form properties. Like to say I want to add widget quantity, like for body weight. This is a unit, and yep, and then also I can here copy it. You're able to swap it in any direction. Also you can right now add some maybe restrictions, and to check here yep, it's in progress. It don't work with full cycle of the form, it's just UI stuff, and we're working hard to make it real, to save forms and yeah, to use them lately.
Thanks a lot. Thank
Maybe
you,
that's all.
Vitaly.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're interested in joining and contributing to the development of the Forms UI builder, please drop us a line. And that's it for the release overview. Thanks a lot for joining us. It was a pleasure to talk to you and partially see you today. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.